Okay, let's see the practical application we are going to develop now. Let's run this and see the final outcome. So let's run this on a iPhone, right? See in the iPhone, because the red color label is installed only in width regular, height regular, you will not see it on an iPhone. So that's what it's not getting installed in the final deployed app. In the final deployed app to the App Store, you will not see that label because you have installed it only for certain, right? See, and the width is smaller font size, smaller gap. Whereas in the iPad, right, it will have a larger font size, right, and extra labels and different colors and different leading and trailing spaces, right? So this is also adaptivity, guys. So your app is getting adapted according to the environment. So the app is getting adapted according to the trait, right? App is get adapted according to trait variations, right? So this is all coming under adaptive user interfaces, guys. Okay, so let's continue to develop this application now. Okay, so the lesson is Adaptive UI lesson 3. Advanced auto layout, which we discussed trait system, the trait collections, the size classes, and vary for traits options. So this is lesson 3. So it's very important to understand that you have to do lesson 2, 1 and 2 before this. Tools used in this lecture, we'll be using Xcode version 11.4.1 for practicals and Apple Developer Docs for referencing. Prerequisite is definitely you have to look at lesson 1 and lesson 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D, 2E on adaptive UI in this channel, right? Otherwise you will not understand this lecture, right? So in this session you will be learning, continue to learn more about adaptive UI design, then size class specific layouts, right? You will be talking about final and base size classes. You'll be looking things of using size class tool, using the inspectors, and using device configuration bar, and vary for traits, and experimenting with size classes and practical code examples. So now you remember, if you look at the previous lessons in this series about adaptive UI, we said there are 3 ways of tackling. So first of all, you have to always try to tackle with auto layout without constraints, that is using stack views, so which we have done in the previous lessons. Then after that, if not possible, you have to go for simple auto layout, and basically when you use simple auto layout, you will be creating constraints to apply universally, right? Universally, the same constraint value to all the devices. So you are creating constraints to apply universally, right? The same constraint value to all the devices. So what does that mean? So to make it more clear, that means in simple auto layout, you are creating constraints to apply them universally to all the devices. Simple as that, right? The constraint will apply to all the devices. It's not for one device. So if you do a change in simple auto layout, it applies for all devices, iPads, iPhones, and all sorts of orientations, etc., right? But then you come to advanced auto layout, which is the focus of this lecture, because the first 2 bullet points we have already done in the previous sessions, right? But the third bullet point is the new thing here, right? Advanced auto layout, which we will be talking about the trait system, trait collections, size classes, and vary for traits. We'll see what are those. So in this, you can create constraints to apply only for a specific device, right? That means for a certain size class. So that is what we tackle in advanced auto layout. So that we call as customizations, right? Which means you can do changes so that it applies only for one device family or one size class, such as, let us say, only for the iPhones, right? Not for iPads, right? Let's see what it is when we go forward, right? So that is advanced auto layout. So then once again, to further elaborate it, auto layout without constraint is stack views. Simple auto layout, as we said in the previous slide, it's creating constraints to apply universally the same constraint value to all the devices, right? So you create constraints to apply universally the same constraint value to all the devices, right? And then, so which means you are creating constraints to apply them universally to all the devices, right? Simple as that. It applies to all the example. You can so in simple auto layout, you will be adding constraints for all the device configurations. Also, if you add an item, label or button, it will add for all the device configurations, right? That's what you were doing actually in the previous exercises. But in advanced auto layout, under trait systems and all, you can create constraints to apply only for certain device, right? For a certain size class. Example, you can add constraints for a specific device configuration, right? That means for a certain size class, right? That means only for iPads, for example, or only for iPhones, right? Or you can add items, right, into a certain specific device configuration, right? So meaning you can add labels and buttons only for a certain size class, not universal. Meaning in the other words, so not for all the devices, right? It's for certain devices, right? Of course, the auto layout concept is it's when you finish it, whether it's simple auto layout or advanced auto layout, at the end it's universal. But the point here is when you do advanced auto layout, you can target and customize certain devices, whereas in the simple auto layout, you are not targeting specific device configurations. You do it for all the devices, right? But in advanced auto layout, you are targeting specific device configuration. So that is the point here, right? Let's see how you do it. So you will see it when we do the practicals, right? Advanced auto layout. So the order is, try to implement the auto layout in the following order. First try auto layout without constraints, then try simple auto layout, then if not, try advanced auto layout, right? So customizations. Now these customizations is what we are talking under advanced auto layout, right? So let me put that here. So what do you mean by customizations, right? So the focus, so what we focus in advanced auto layout is customizations. So what do you mean by customization is designers. Now if you are a developer, the designers will give you different layouts for different devices. So it's not the same. For example, the font, when the designer asks you to develop an app, the font size may be smaller in an iPhone, but the same app, say the same heading, the font size may be larger in an iPad. So it's the same app. Let us say you are using a let us say employment app, right? So if it says summary of your shifts, right? So if there's a heading called summary of shifts, the font size for that label may be smaller in iPhone. The font size for that label may be larger in iPad. So those are the customizations. So designers will give you different layouts. So those are different layouts, right? And sometimes there can be in an iPhone, in the same app, it may be less information because it's a smaller screen, but on same app running on iPad may be more information, right? So what is that? That is again a different customization. That is again, designers will give you different layouts, right? So as developers, you should be able to translate, map them into size classes. In other words, into different device configurations, right? So that means you should be able to map it into different device configurations. So that means it's not the same auto layout constraints you have to apply for, let us say, iPhones and iPad in this case, right? Because with a larger font size, or the classic example is, let me show it to you now. A classic example is this, for this. So as example, let us say in this, if your designer says, okay, when you run this app on a say on iPhone, he might say this gap should be 30, value of 30. But he might say, the designer, same app when you run on a iPad, right? When you run on iPad, he might say it's not 30, that gap should be say 150. Guys, now that is a customization. That is what we are talking in advanced auto layout, right? So if the designer says to you, if the designer tells you, okay, give me a second to open it. Okay, it's getting open. So if the designer tells you, okay, now in the iPad, this gap should be not 30, it should be 150. Now that is a classic example for a customization, right? Now this is what we do under advanced auto. This comes under advanced auto layout, right? So that thing is known as a customization, a classic example. Another example is, maybe this employee window label should be having, a designer might ask you to have a larger font here, whereas he might say have a smaller font on the iPhone. Can you understand, my little friends? So this is what we call under, this is what we are discussing under customizations, right? So this is the point here, right? So what we are focusing in advanced auto layout in this discussion is customizations. So this is the whole thing. Designers will give you different layouts, but as developers you should be able to translate, map them into size classes, right? That into different device configurations. So let's see about this, right? Now when you say this different size classes, what does that mean, this customization or device configuration or size classes, right? So that you saw, guys, if you remember, on this series, in this series, when we start discussing adaptive auto layout, right, you saw that when you go down, right, see there was size classes, right? So we saw this in this lesson, but let's read it again, right? Size classes are traits that are automatically assigned to content based to assigned to content areas based on their size. So system defines two size classes: regular, that means it's expansive, and compact, meaning it's constrained, right? We discussed this in the past. So which describe the height and the width, right? So the height and the width. So usually height towards the height, right? So the height is normally you got more space towards the height in a font, right? So that is regular. But the width is more constrained in a font, right? The width, that means horizontal. Horizontally it's more constrained, that means compact. But vertically, that means the width, it has more space. So we discuss this. So a view may possess any combination. So a regular width, regular height, that is like an iPad, where you have a larger screen. See, iPad like have more space. So that means regular width, regular height. But sometimes it's compact width, I will say compact width and regular height. That is, say, like a iPhone, a compact width but a regular height, right? Then maybe an iPhone can come under, say, regular width but compact height. That also possible. Say, so regular width, compact height. So these are different device configurations, right? So that is what your designer might say. Okay, on an iPad he want larger font size. That means the relevant configuration is regular width, regular height for you as a developer. That is what this says, that as a developer you should be able to map. As developers you should be able to map these, these layouts into different size classes. The designer request, you should be able to map. So if the designer says, okay, he want a larger font size on an iPad, for you as a developer is, that means a larger font size is, for you as a developer, it's not for iPad, it's for regular width and regular height, if you get my point. Then if the designer says you should have a smaller font for that label on an iPhone, then for you it's not, for you when you translate, it's not for iPhone, it's for compact width and regular height. So for compact width and regular height, it's a smaller font size. That means you should be able to translate the devices or the request for devices into different device configurations or into different size classes. So what are the size classes you got? You got 4 size classes in generally as a combination, right? Any combination of this, you got combinations of size classes, that is regular with regular height, that means iPads. Compact with regular height means iPhones, for example, and then the other categories as well. Okay, so the device size class, so different size class combinations applies to full screen experience of different devices. So always it's combinations, right? So for an iPad, right, in the regular portrait, it's regular width, regular height. But let us say if you take an iPhone, it's compact width, right, and a regular height. So likewise, all the devices are coming under different device size classes, right? Hope that is crystal clear for you, because we have discussed it earlier as well. So that is the whole point here. In advanced auto layout, you are going to tackle that, right? That customization. So you call it as customization. Okay, my friends, right? And then, so then there's a bottom bar to help you with all this. That means if you look at your Xcode, you have this, right? This is known as the bottom bar in general, right? So if this one, when you look it like this, it's known as the bottom bar. So in the bottom bar, you have these tools to, apply auto layout, and also you have to zoom. And then this one, when you click, you call this as a device configuration bar. So in the bottom bar, you got that, inside that you got the device configuration bar. So this is going to help you in this process. Okay, my friends, right? Okay. Then adding customization. Now you know what are customizations, right? So when it comes to adding customizations, you have again couple of ways of doing it, right? So when it comes to adding customizations, you can do it using the attribute inspector, right? So what is attribute inspector? You all know, right? The attribute inspector, let me get it for you. So for example, if you want to add a customization, this is the attribute inspector, like see this one, right? So if I click, I don't know, let us say if I click on a view, or let us click on, let us say a button or something like that. Let's say on a button, right? On this button, let me click on it. So when you click on the button, you get this, right? So what is this? This is the attribute inspector. So you can do these customizations using, one way of doing it is using attribute inspector, guys, right? One way of using it, attribute inspector, right? And then based on size, so you can use attribute inspector to add a customization based on the size class. Now to keep in focus, this customizations comes under advanced auto layout, right? Our lesson. So using attribute inspector to add a customization based on the size class. In the attribute inspector, there's a plus button, meaning that a particular attribute can be customized using the trait collection system. So let's see how to do it, right? Let's see how to do it. Now, so what I can do is, now, but before that, I'm going to take a copy of this, right? I'm going to take a copy of this and do the changes, right? So let me close the project, right? Stop the tasks, and let me go into this. I'm going to make a copy of this project, right? So this is it. So I'm going to make a copy, right? And then I'm going to move it into another folder like lesson 3, right? So let me do it now. I'm going to move that into a folder called lesson 3. So I call it as lesson 3 advanced auto layout, and let's run Xcode. Let's open that. Okay, guys. So let's okay, this one, lesson 3, right? Let's go into documents. Let's see. Okay, so lesson 3. Let's open this. It says lesson 2, but it's because I took a copy of it, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename it. Close the project. Once again, open. Lesson 3. Okay, it's the same project, right? So awesome, right? So now we have it, right? Now let me delete these buttons. I don't want it. We did this, we added this button for experiments, so let's delete this. Let's delete this, right? So it got deleted from the document navigated the document section as well. So let's compile this. Right, let's see whether it compiles without a problem. So it's removed from the document list as well. It got compiled. Let's run this, right? Let's see what's the outcome, right? And then we will do that edit, right? Okay, so it's working right now.